Hi everybody, I'm back down in my basement kitchen tonight starting some more cold hardy annual seeds. So wanted to welcome you in if you want to get an update on what's going on down here. A couple of weeks ago we started some seeds together. Those are all doing pretty well. I have 2 trays of Sweet William going, 1 tray of foxglove, 1 tray of eucalyptus. They've all germinated. They're looking pretty good. I'm kind of debating right now whether I am going to fertilize my seedlings this year. I did not do that last year, but I'm considering using an organic fish emulsion on the seedlings. So I'm kind of still working through that a little bit. Haven't pulled the trigger on the purchase. Really don't want my house to smell like fish, so that's kind of part of the delay for me. But I feel like last year when I planted out end of March all of my cold hardy annuals, I wish my plants had been a little bit more robust by the time they went in the garden. And so that is why I'm considering doing some fertilizing inside. It's supposed to be all organic, so I'm happy about that. But not happy about the smell. So tonight I am, and I should back up and say, on the 18th, I started verbena seeds and ladies mantle seeds. Verbena is possibly a perennial here. We'll see what happens. Ladies mantle is a perennial. These are, I would say, a little bit of a trickier start for me. They require just a little bit more germination time. Verbena, I am taking off of the heat mat in the evenings and letting it just sit in the cool and then putting it back on in the mornings. I had done a little bit of reading about that, and it seems to need that temperature change to get germinated. Verbena also does not like to be moist, and so I'm trying to be really careful about how much I'm watering that tray. So we'll see how it goes. It's definitely a little bit more tricky, I would say, for that one in particular. But tonight I did pull out, if you were with me on the cold stratification video, that was about a week and a half ago. So these are cold hardy annual seeds that have been in the fridge for the last week and a half, going through the process of cold stratification. So they're all in wet paper towels, and they were cold. And that is emulating what would happen to these seeds if these seeds fell off the plant outside and just sat on the soil all winter. So that is why we go through that process. It helps them get ready to get started into soil a little bit better. So tonight I am starting several varieties of Scabiosa. So I'm doing Scabiosa stellata. Those are my seeds that I saved from last season. Those are those star flowers, or they could be called paper moon. They're the really pretty seed pods. When they dry, you can dry them, and you can use them fresh as well. And then a new to me foliage, Ami. Oh no, I'm sorry. I did grow Ami white last year, but I'm growing both white and green this year. And then the other colors of Scabiosa I'm doing are salmon and Merlot red. Those should be pretty. And then also Orlea, which is a really pretty white flower. So again, these are going to be going in the ground end of March. They'll be hardening off the week before we plant them out. We'll go through a hardening off period where we're carrying those trays in and out every day so that we can get those seedlings acclimated outside before we put them in the ground. So they'll be living in here like 4 to 5 weeks, 1 week of the hardening off, and then into the ground the end of March. So I am gonna give you a quick look at what is going on with our seedlings that we have started, and then we'll walk through a little bit of getting started with our seeds tonight. I did want to show you too that I have this wonderful garden planner. I used this last year too. I love it. It's put out by, I think her name is Emily Ley. Ley, I believe it is. And it's her company is called Simplified. And she makes these planners. She has a garden one, then she has regular planners. They sell like really pretty pens and notepads and things like that. But she puts out this planner and I've enjoyed using it. It helps me kind of make my list for the year of what I'm going to be growing. It helps me, there's sections where you can plot out your garden, map out what you're going to be growing so that you can kind of figure out spacing, how many things you can fit in an area. And then it's all by month, and there's note sections where you can add notes. But this is really what keeps me on track. This is really where I did all of my planning in terms of what I was going to be purchasing, the timing of how these flowers were going to be blooming, and making sure I had colors coordinated that hopefully are going to result in nice bouquets this year that look a little bit more put together than I feel like my bouquets looked last year. So hopefully this is something that I'm going to improve upon this year, is getting bouquets that are a bit more tied together in terms of color. So tried really hard working on that. We'll see how it goes. But this is really, what guides me in terms of when to start certain seeds, and just lots of notes that I take. So that's a big help. And then I think I also showed you that I keep all of my seeds, maybe I haven't shown you this yet, in this, whatever you call these little plastic shoe boxes. And what I do is I try to put elastics around a group of seeds. So there are seeds in this elastic that I want to start February 28th. So I write, even though I have it in my planner, I also write on my seed packets. So I write right on the outside of the packet what date I want to start those. And then the way that this is organized in the box is the seed packets that I'm going to start the earliest are at the front. And then we kind of work our way back through the growing season and end with what is going to be the latest that's either started inside or what is the latest being started outside. So that's kind of how I keep myself organized as we're going through this season of growing inside. And I do want to show you these seedlings. So we're going to take a second. I'm going to take you off of this contraption and we'll walk over and check these out. So this is one of the 2 trays of Sweet William. And as you can see, these are looking pretty good, I think. So this is the first set of leaves that the seedlings would have shot up. And they have now grown their first true set of leaves. I did not understand this concept when I started growing cut flowers, but these are called, the first set of leaves are called cotyledons. And that is the set of leaves that really helps the plant. They store nutrients in those seeds to give them the energy to grow in those initial stages as a seedling. So a lot of times these are gonna just they could just brown up and die off, but those are not their true leaves. Again, they're called cotyledon leaves. So these are looking good. So far, I think going better than last year. And then this is the foxglove. And so far this foxglove, this is definitely going better than last year so far, because I believe my foxglove last year, a lot of it got dampening off. So, and then this is the tray of verbena that we started a couple of days ago. And then down here I have still in a dome lady's mantle, and then this is one tray of Scabiosa that I started earlier today. So we're looking good. That's what's going on. I'm going to turn this fan on. I think I have forgotten to mention that you should run a fan. Oh, that must be unplugged. You should run a fan blowing on your seedlings like probably several hours a day at least. I think that that can help them avoid dampening off. And it also provides the seedlings some movement so that they can, their stems will be stronger because they kind of blow in that breeze a little bit that the fan creates. So it's a good idea to keep. All right, so I'm going to get started with Salmon Rose Scabiosa tonight, and I wanted to go over the seed packet from Johhny's a little bit more just because there's so much great information. This is why I love buying from Johhny's. It just makes it so easy, and their website is so user-friendly. So if you need clarification on what's on the packet, you can go to their website and get some more clarification. But on the front cover of the packet, you'll see that date of maturity where it says days, 90 to 100 days. So what that means is from the time you transplant that seed out into the garden, it's 90 to 100 days before that is going to be blooming. So it does not start, the clock does not start ticking when you start the seed inside. It truly starts once you get that transplant in the ground. So I know when I get this in the ground, the end of March, I'm gonna have to wait 90 to 100 days before it's blooming. And then also on the outside of the packet, it tells me it's an annual, and it tells me it's going to be 24 to 36 inches. Last year when I grew Scabiosa, it was really more like, I would say 4 feet in my garden. So of course there's going to be some variability with that. And then also, interestingly enough, on the outside on the front of their packets, it tells you the germination rate. So they tested these seeds in August of 25, and they had 94% germination rate. So that tells me I don't need to put a lot of extra seeds into each cell. The germination rate is very high. So that tends to hold true, I find, with Johhny seeds. So that's a really nice aspect of this as well. And then on the back, it's going to give you information in that first paragraph where it says culture. So it can either say transplant or direct seed. And depending on what is listed first, that is what Johhny Seeds recommends that you start that seed as. So because transplant is listed first and direct seed is listed second, that tells me that Johhny's is saying, hey, the best way to start this seed is by transplanting it, not direct seeding it into the garden. It also tells me how long that seed needs to live inside before it goes outside. So this is saying 4 to 6 weeks before the last frost date. Now, because I am in zone 6B, this particular plant is a cold hardy annual. Johhny's isn't going to give you information on how to treat seeds as cold hardy annuals because depending on what zone you live in, it's different for every zone what plant is cold hardy or not. So they're always going by your last frost date, but because I know that this plant is cold hardy, meaning it can survive snow, heavy frost, cold temperatures, I know that I want to start this seed inside and have it live inside about 4 to 6 weeks before it goes into the garden. So with me starting this today, February 21st, planting it out the end of March, that's giving us about 4 to 5 weeks inside, a week of hardening off, and then into the garden. So that really does give some good information about really how to gauge how long the plant needs to live inside before it goes out. And then this also tells you about what to expect for germination. So on this packet, it says 10 to 12 days. So that tells me in about a week and a half, we should start seeing those seedlings pop up in the trays. And it also tells us at what temperature we're going to achieve germination. And that 65 to 70 degree range tells me that this seed needs to be on a heat mat. Not all seeds you start inside need heat mats. Some seeds really like it to be cooler in order to get started. but that 65 to 70 degrees is definitely a heat mat seed. If it said something more like 50 to 60 degrees, I would not put it on a heat mat. This also tells us on the back how deep you need to plant this seed. So some seeds, you need to plant them 1/4 of an inch down into the soil, 1/2 of an inch down into the soil. Some seeds, you start them just on the surface. They don't want to be covered at all. So this does say that it says to barely cover as light aids germination. So I'm not covering this seed. If anything, just kind of push it down in a little tiny bit, but it has to be exposed to the light in order to germinate. So I know this is a surface sow seed. I know it has to go on a heat mat. I know I'm going to anticipate seeing this seedling appear in about a week and a half. So lots of good information on these packets. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you about Scabiosa seed is this is what my seed looked like from my garden last year. I don't know if that's going to come out very good. See if I move it this way. So Scabiosa seeds look like the thing, if you played badminton as a kid, it looked like the thing that you hit back and forth with the rackets. It has kind of this papery coating on the outside. You can take that off, but you don't have to. The seed is kind of inside of here in this little hard part. And when you plant this, you don't want to plant it pointing down. You don't want to plant it pointing up. You're going to lay it sideways in that tray. So as I get started tonight, I am going to moisten my soil with a spray bottle because we always want to start with moist soil in the trays. And then when I'm filling my trays, I am drop this down a little bit. All right, so I moistened this earlier. That still feels damp to me, but when I fill the tray, I do tap the side of the tray against my big green tray because you want to make sure that when you're filling these that you don't have any air pockets. So when I tap this down, you can kind of see that soil level drop down because there was an air pocket in there. So you kind of keep filling and tapping. There's mixed information, I would say, online about whether you should like pat the soil down really hard. I just tend to try to tap and make sure everything's settling really good. And then I always try to be careful about taking a visual and seeing that in my slants on these cells, you can see the dirt all the way down. I've made the mistake of having an air pocket in here. And then when you go to water these, if there was an air pocket in here, that soil isn't going to be down to the bottom of this tray. And so it's going to be harder for it to wick up the water when you're watering from the bottom in that tray. So make sure you kind of do the tap and refill it. Make sure you are filling to the top. If you aren't filling to the top, that can create a shadow for the seedlings as they're getting started. It would be harder for the light to get to them. So make sure your soil is coming up to the very top. And then I'm going to lay those Scabiosa seeds in there on their side. And then I'm going to, once I get all these filled up, I will put them in the tray, and then I will take about 15 minutes to water them from the bottom. I'm backing off on how much water I'm putting in the bottom of those trays. I was saying earlier I was going to go halfway, but it's not necessary. You can put a little bit less than that. So maybe like a quarter of a way up the tray, and then give them 15 minutes to wick that up. I also put vermiculite on top. This is the vermiculite that I use from Lowe's. It's a fine vermiculite. It helps with algae forming on the soil. It helps with moisture retention and nutrient retention. You can get this in the store or online. It's definitely online. I've seen it. And then I will also, once they're done wicking up the water from the tray, I also am going to give them a little bit of spray from the top so that I don't displace those seeds. And then they're going to go on the heat mat with a dome over the tray until those seeds germinate at 50%. So you have to really watch once they start to germinate. If they get to 50%, that is the sign to take that dome off, get them about 2 inches under your light system, and off of that heat mat. They don't need heat after you have 50% germination. You want to keep hitting them with a little bit of a spray every day to keep the surface of the soil moist. As more seeds are going to be germinating, you want to keep a little bit of moisture on that top level. And then I only water when I start to see the soil get a lighter color on the top, when that tray starts to feel a little bit lighter. And I always check kind of on the bottom to see if that feels moist or not still. I would say it's different for every seed that I start. I can't say that on all of these trays I'm watering them every 2 to 3 days. It's really something that you have to pay attention to. If you see soil start pulling away from the inside of the cell, I would say that's also a sign that they probably need some water. All right, guys, I think that's it for tonight. I'm gonna continue on with my seed starting, and my husband is telling me he's taking me to Brewster's for a Sunday tonight. So I'm gonna try to get some of this in, and then we are headed out for ice.